The Timeline is a Blue Wire podcast.
To the Timeline of Phoenix Suns podcast. The Suns traded into the first round. My name is Mike, here with Sam. How you doing, Sam?
Meat! Word of the day, baby. I am doing good. We just streamed for 3 hours for the first round and really thought that the Suns were not going to do anything until the final bell. Really, it came in at the 23rd hour, and our guy, are we going to call him our guy?
You can.
Well, I'll say this first of all. Neither of us went to U of A. Neither of us are really college basketball fans. So we didn't have this sort of attachment to U of A basketball that certain people in the community, say, for instance, our friend Kellen Olson, who just joined us on a podcast a few days ago, had to the U of A basketball team this past season, watching players like freshman Koa Pete, who is now, as we know, a member of the Phoenix Suns. So a few months ago, watching an Arizona game in your apartment when I was visiting Phoenix, I made a joke about Koa Pete. That's a funny name. And then tweeted out a hashtag. Hashtag Pete Your Meat. I thought that would be pretty funny. And, because I have a juvenile sense of humor. And then you were joking with me tonight that maybe I cursed this. Not cursed it, but just spoke it into existence.
You caused this to happen.
I caused this to happen. The Suns
cosmically
have evidently had a fascination with this prospect who we're about to break down in rough terms, because you know us. A fascination with this prospect, Koa Pete. They were able to orchestrate a deal with the Dallas Mavericks. The 30th overall pick is where they ended up taking him, and it only cost them the 47th overall pick that we knew they had in the second round, which will be happening tomorrow, and second round picks in, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, 2029 and 2032. Able to move up 17 spots for that and land the U of A freshman. So a surprise, but a fun one, I think. I'm excited for this.
For those of you who don't know anything about Koa Pete, he is a forward, played for the University of Arizona, 6'7", 245 pounds, 19 years of age, young, not just young in general from like a draft term, but for this particular place in the draft, we talked about it. These players are a lot older. The Suns picked one of the young guys that are able to
They picked a guy who is 19, will not turn 20 until the season's basically halfway over because his birthday's in January. This was an area of the draft. We were talking about it with Kellen the other day. Like, you take guys at the end of the first round, beginning of the second round. It tends to be the really so-called polished seniors who are 22, 23 years old, guys who, like, contenders are thinking about taking as instant contributors. And for a 19-year-old to be available at this point in the draft does mean a couple of things that we need to address in terms of, like, maybe a prospect like Koa Pete has some big holes in his game that, there are reasons why he didn't go in the lottery. But I really like the fact that they took a swing here. I in some ways, I think you wouldn't call this a swing based on where some other people had Koa Pete on their big boards and stuff. But, just the idea of taking a younger prospect who has this longer runway for growth, a little bit more of a, maybe not day one ready guy, but someone who they're thinking about 2, 3, 4 years from now. I think just in general as a concept, that's a really smart idea for the Suns right now.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing, but like we should talk about what he is as a player and like what you should think about when it comes to his ceiling. Because I think if you're picking a player at 19 years old, where the Suns are, not just like in the draft, but also like where they are as a franchise, I think the idea here is you're trying to develop a player with a higher ceiling. This late in the draft, picking a guy that young is really interesting. So, like, I think, I don't know, is he Oso? Like, part of me is like, is he small Oso? Is that where we start to try to explain him to Suns fans? He's really strong. Obviously, at 245 pounds, at 19 years old, he's going to be really strong. He is a good passer, a good connector. He is not quite a shooter. We talked about it with Kellen on the last podcast. I just asked Kellen straight up, do you think he'll be able to shoot in the NBA? Kellen's answer, I think, in the most optimistic terms, was eventually maybe yeah. And that is something that's going to affect him at somebody who's 6'7", because if he was 6'11", 7 feet tall, and he couldn't shoot, that'd be different. But when you're 6'7" in the NBA, you kind of have to shoot in order to get minutes. He's obviously going to play somewhat of a power forward role in the NBA. He's not going to be a small forward. But for a guy who's as big as he is at his, at 6'7", 245, moves his feet pretty well. And seems like it could actually translate to being a pretty good defender in the NBA at some point.
6'11" wingspan. 8'8" standing reach, not remarkable. For a power forward, certainly not remarkable. But otherwise, you would say good size for a wing, I think. 245 pounds, again. Like, that's just similar to what they did with Rasheer Fleming. Maybe he's a very different prospect from Rasheer Fleming, but just in terms of the body frame, you can see what they're trying to do with drafting these bigger wings who can play at that position. The Suns certainly needed some size in general, given how small their team is. And then, yeah, I mean, it's just sort of like, in terms of the way that he scores, getting so many mid-range buckets, getting so many kind of buckets in the short mid-range, inside the paint, and then not being really a threat to shoot from long distance at all as a college freshman, that's going to dictate everything for him going forward in terms of his ability to stick around in the NBA. And also because you're dealing with a guy who's 19 years old, maybe Koa Pete does learn to shoot threes in the NBA. Maybe that takes him 3 or 4 years and not 1 or 2. Maybe it even takes him 5 or 6. I don't know. And so, there is a reality whenever you're taking a player in these sorts of positions as well, where if you're the first team that's drafting them, you have to be committed to their development, but you also have to understand that with young players like this, sometimes it takes a very, very long time for them to sort of, reach that fully actualized picture of what they eventually could be. So you need to keep some understanding in your head as well of, well, what can they do for me in year 1 and 2? What do you think Koa Pete can do for the Suns in year 1 or 2? If we're trying to be realistic about,
no, it's a good question.
What the idea is of him right now.
Before we recorded, you asked me straight up, do you think Jordan Ott will play Koa Pete this season? Because he can't shoot. Because we just talked about this on our last podcast, that he doesn't play guys who can't shoot.
So he shot, let me just point out to everyone, he shot 7 for 20 from deep all season, right?
And
so he took
really
less than 1 3 per game.
A really bad form on that shot.
A really jerky release. 62% from the free throw line as well, which is not good.
So here's the thing. You're right. Jordan Ott doesn't play guys who can't shoot, except one, and it's Oso Ighodaro. And there's something kind of interesting about that, because what pops when you watch the Koa Pete highlights, what pops first of all, he can dunk. He can drive a little bit, which is good for somebody that has his build. But what pops is the passing. It pops right away, and you see how he's able to catch. It's like Dario Saric style passing. He catches the ball, free throw line extended in the middle of the floor, and he can quickly surveil the floor. He can throw lobs. He can throw passes to the corner. He makes high-level reads for a guy who's playing the power forward position. Now, which is not quite what he played in Arizona, but I think that's what he would play in the NBA. I think that's most likely his position. Maybe he can play the 3. If he can shoot, it's hard to imagine if he can't, he'd be able to. But look, it would be nice if he could play next to, I'm going to say it again, a center who could shoot threes.
I think my first thought here, watching those high-low reads that Koa Pete's making from the top of the key, right? I think there's a real chemistry, a real synergy that in theory could work with Kaman Malawach, of if Malawach is what the Suns' idea of him is in year 2. Which I think means some combination of Malawach being able to finish at the rim, keeping his hands high, and having good hands in general and being able to catch, but also being a spacing threat. I think in theory that makes a lot of sense. I think if you played Koa Pete next to Oso Ighodaro next year, they might be two very smart players, but that basically just sounds like a disaster. Like, I have no idea how those two players.
I kind of want to see it now. I just want to see like two really smart guys.
If Pete is just like a well-sized, brick house power forward who can't shoot, and then Oso's an undersized smart center who also can't shoot, just have no idea how that's going to work if those two guys would ever share the floor. Maybe he can play next to Rasheer, and you just do like switchable wings everywhere, and Rasheer shoots threes, but Rasheer's not that great of a shooter either. So there's a lot of question marks.
The Suns are going to be the worst free throw shooting team eventually. They just keep adding guys who can't shoot free throws to this team.
That's true. Yeah, Ryan Dunn, and then
Oso Ighodaro,
Rasheer, and now here's another one. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of question marks in terms of how this would look in year one. But I do like the fact if you look at the tape, he does appear to be a smart player. And I want to point out, just a lot of the trusted draft resources that we like. Sam Vecini, whose draft content I love, had Koa Pete 16th on his big board. J. Kyle Mann of The Ringer, who's been on our podcast before, we also love, had him 23rd, I think you said.
Yep, that's right.
No Ceilings is a draft blog where we've had Tyler Rucker, their founder, on our podcast before. They do like an aggregate, so it's all of them, put a grade on a guy, and then it gets combined into an average. Even their average of like 5 or 6 guys, or however many it is, has Koa Pete 27th, which is still above 30. So something really had to happen here, I think, for him to fall all the way to the Suns. I wonder if there were kind of these rumors that the Suns were pushing really hard for this all day.
It's because he can't shoot.
I know it's a combination of he can't shoot, and he had a poor showing at the combine in terms of some of his other athletic measurements, not like his wingspan or anything, but like I know he had a poor shuttle run, stuff like that. But still, it feels like a lot of trusted draft sources viewed him as comfortably a first-round talent guy, and the Suns got him at 30th. For the 47th overall pick and 2 future second-round picks really seems like good value to me.
You've heard us talk about Alchemy Roast before, but if you still haven't tried them, consider this your reminder. One of the things I appreciate about Alchemy is that they're focused on the coffee itself. They source quality beans, roast in small batches, and pay attention to the details that make a difference in the cup. Whether you're making pour over, espresso, or just a standard drip coffee at home, it's the kind of coffee that makes you look forward to your morning routine. And if you're someone who drinks coffee every day, upgrading what you're brewing is one of the simplest changes you can make. And you've been hearing these ads thinking, I'll check it out later. Well, now is a good time. Head to alchemyroaster.com and use the promo code TIMELINE to get 10% off your order. That's alchemyroaster.com, promo code TIMELINE today to support them, a local Phoenix business, and to support us here on this podcast.
If your business runs on 5 different apps, 12 browser tabs, and 1 spreadsheet that everyone's afraid to touch, it's probably time for Odoo. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that connects every part of your business into one powerful, easy-to-use platform. So instead of wasting time switching between disconnected systems, your entire business works together in real time. Your team moves faster, your data stays accurate, and you can actually focus on growing your business. Let one unified system run your entire business. From the first opportunity to the final payment, everything works together in one place. Whether you're a small business or managing a large operation, Odoo gives you one flexible platform built to grow with you. Learn more at odoo.com. That's ODOO.com.
I don't mind that. He has to be a good player picked there, though, and maybe not right away, but eventually. Otherwise, a little tough to really envision it. But the way I described him when we were talking on the stream was kind of like a much worse Boozer, Cameron Boozer, in the way he kind of plays. Boozer's much better at driving and much better at shooting and scoring in general. But I think a lot of the places of the court that they occupy, where their game likes to sit, are similar areas. Another guy that I compared them to, which, by the way, I'm not saying to be anywhere near as good as this player, but Pau Gasol, because that's like where Pau Gasol liked to operate when he was in the NBA. A lot of the high-low stuff. Pau Gasol, of course, much taller, but the NBA, weirdly, at that position has gotten shorter over the years. But like I said, the passing pops when you watch his film. James Jones guy is another way I described him, and you pointed out that he's 19, so everything but age there makes a lot of sense. But if you
also
watch,
not a shooter. James Jones really valued shooters, I think.
That's a fact. That's a fact. But if you watch some of the things that he does when he's moving around on the floor, for example, when a player gets trapped, when two guys are going at the ball handler in the screen, the screener will slip the screen. You watch highlights of Koa Pete, he's slipping the screen pretty consistently. For a player like Devin Booker, if he gets trapped, having guys that he can trust passing the ball next is something the Suns continue to try to do over and over and over again. And when the Suns were at their best, they had guys like Dario Saric who could do something when Devin Booker is trapped. So somebody like Koa Pete, if that's a skill that he has right away or in the future, that's beneficial not just for Devin Booker, but for any style of defense, really. And he's wide enough that he probably doesn't have to slip screens all the time. He can probably hit a screen pretty hard. But what you need, by the way, I'll say it again, is players next to him that are either floor spacers or really great in the dunker spot in order to even allow Koa to be a guy who's consistently setting screens. So, find that right mix. I don't know, right at this point, the Suns don't have a starting center. Yeah. Mark Williams could be that guy. We haven't talked about it. They haven't signed him yet. I don't anticipate if it does happen, it's going to happen soon. I do think there's a chance that the Suns do try to sign and trade him if a team does want him. When I think of a sign and trade for Mark Williams, I'm thinking a second-round pick at best. Like, I'm not getting overly excited.
I'm not
maybe a player, maybe a minimum contract
value.
Player.
Sure.
Yeah. But I still think that's something the Suns could look to do just to not lose him for nothing. I don't think Oso Ighodaro is going to be that starting center. I do think the Suns will try to retain Mark Williams to be that guy. He's not somebody who can shoot threes. Malawach's threes are still theoretical. I don't know how much you believe in them, but it's just not something we've saw.
Again, I believe in them in the long term. So if they're bringing Koa Pete into their infrastructure, I want him to play with Devin Booker. I want him to play with everyone, but I'm probably thinking about him in year one as guy number 12 on the depth chart. And I think he's going to log more minutes with Kaman Malawach than he is with, if Mark Williams is back, than with Mark Williams or Devin Booker. I'm not viewing this as the guy who's going to be challenging for the starting power forward position.
Really, even beyond that, though, just having one big that can shoot threes on the roster just unlocks so much of what this roster can do. It just would be nice if they could find one. I really hope they find a way to get one on the roster, or maybe it's Malawach. Like maybe it is this year he can shoot threes now. But it would be nice to see that because Oso Ighodaro could potentially be a second big on the floor. Somebody like Koa Pete could potentially do that. Rasheer Fleming, it opens him up as the screener who's a very good finisher at the rim, although he can shoot as well, which is nice. So 5-out lineups, things like that become a little bit more interesting. And this is just another guy added to the list of someone who would be interesting if the Suns could find a big who could shoot threes.
Yeah. And if they could find a big who can shoot threes, then he makes more sense right away. And if he learns to shoot threes, then again, let's just stress the fact that the ceiling here just feels way higher. Obviously, shooting is going to be his swing skill, and if Koa Pete never becomes a shooter, then he maxes out as like a seventh man in the NBA, right? Probably because he's too small to be a center, and as a forward in the NBA, you have to shoot threes. You just have to. But if he can shoot, the ceiling here is way higher than if they took some of the other guys we were talking about. I don't know, Zubi Ejiofor or whatever, Braden Smith, like other guys we were talking about the other day who just have these big physical constraints.
What do you envision that ceiling to look like? Are you saying like he shoots 34% from three and that's the real difference? And that's like what? Thad Young?
Yeah, I mean, someone posted a screenshot in our Discord. I don't know where that was from. Was that The Ringer? The Ringer's comps
Oh,
said
yes. I can scroll up to that. Yeah.
Yeah,
They have Thaddeus Young, Sean Livingston in Reggie Evans's body.
That's a really funny one.
And Brandon
they,
Bass.
They said Thad Young, who is a fantastic NBA player. I mean, I know that doesn't like maybe excite people as if you just heard that you're getting, Blake Griffin or Carlos Boozer or whatever at the power forward spot. But Thad Young was a fantastic, really high IQ player for a very long time. I know Tobias Harris's name came up in Sam Vecini's scouting report on him. Again, like to even get to that point, the amount of development as a shooter that he would have to do is tremendous. But I do just think it's interesting that this is kind of like an old school player in many ways that they just drafted.
It's fun. I like when guys are good at a whole bunch of stuff, and like the little things I think is kind of interesting because that seems to be what these scouting reports like to say, that he's strong. First of all, he has good feet. He can dribble a little bit, but he has great passing. Like all of that combined, along with good defense, potentially good defense. Like it's not 100% certain that he could be a great defender.
I think that's another has the tools, but is kind of theoretical thing.
Yeah. Well, like Arizona's defense was good, so he existed on a pretty good defensive team, but they were massive. So I'm not entirely sure that that's like something that can be easily replicated. Or it can, like maybe if Malawach can shoot threes, you could play Koa, Pete, Rasheer Fleming, and Malawach at the same time, which is kind of an interesting thought to think about. But yeah, I'm excited to see him play. I've never been fully against the idea of Koa, Pete. I've always liked good passers. I really feel like, and you've probably heard me say this every year around draft time, I really feel like the easiest way to understand if a player has high basketball IQ is to understand their passing. Do they make the kind of reads that are high level, skip passes, good passes, quick passes, I think is another thing. And if they do that, then they probably have, it's just the easiest way to judge their basketball IQ. And then, of course, you can look at other things from there. But good passing is a really good indicator of good basketball IQ overall.
Yeah, I agree. Gonna have to watch a lot more tape over the next couple days. Maybe we can think about bringing in a guest too to talk to us about Koa. We were making a lot of meat puns, literally all broadcast. We were making meat puns in our Discord, and that's going to continue. So if you don't, I was making 90% of the meat puns, and I will continue to make meat puns. And are we going to have an ad break as part of this podcast?
I think I don't know that we have much more. I think we're just going to do a quick one, right?
This next ad break is sponsored by Arby's. So I'd like to thank Arby's for sponsoring this episode. No, what I do want to ask you before we log off for tonight, we are going to watch the second round tomorrow. Do we think there's any chance? The Suns obviously traded the 47th pick to get Koa Pete. Do we think there's any chance they're active? Is there anything you're looking for tomorrow?
I think that they're probably not going to.
I think they're very most likely done. I don't think this roster is done, and so if an opportunity presented itself in some way to move a role player for some sort of assets tomorrow, which role player I'm talking about, then I'd be exploring all avenues. But I think probably most likely nothing's going to happen for the Suns in the second round tomorrow. Other than maybe they go after some guys to fill out, their summer league team or two-way contracts or whatever. But we will be watching with curiosity.
Yeah, I am interested to see. I think there are still some players out there. I guess there's not a ton of players that we talked about that are still available at this point, but I'd like to see where they go. Vesar is the main one, right?
They can spend up to $8 million on another pick. The Spurs have like 1 million picks in the second round.
They did send cash.
Oh, did they send cash as part of this trade as well?
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm not sure how much that was.
I would love to know how much that was.
I'm sure it'll get reported eventually, but yeah, that'll be an interesting thing to see because I don't know. It says a lot that 2 years in a row when they identified a guy they wanted, which is what I mentioned on our podcast with Kellen too. This is the only thing we knew that they did. They moved mountains to get him. They just traded everything and they kept wheeling and dealing until they could to draft that guy, which was Rasheer Fleming. And they did the same thing this time. I think they traded 3 picks for this 1 pick, and they traded cash for him, and we're going to see how much cash that is. I have a feeling it's a lot. Just a guess. They got into the first round to do it. This is even higher than it was for Rasheer Fleming in a better draft. So one thing we know, they really like Koa Pete. They really do.
Yeah, and again, I just think a prospect with like, I don't know. I don't want to necessarily say a higher ceiling than Rasheer Fleming, but I think he's valued for different things. Fleming was a year older at the time of the draft, and I think was viewed by many people as like prototypical 3-and-D player who can maybe play a little bit of small ball 5, and that's what makes Rasheer so interesting. But I think Koa is valued for a lot of different things, a lot of skills that are like, yes, they're more theoretical. Maybe they come years later. But like Rasheer Fleming made like 3 mid-range jump shots in college, if that. And Koa's out here like swinging his meat around.
He does have a little mid-range shot. We didn't really talk about that. He likes to play out of the post. That's the Sean Livingston part of this Ringer comp. He likes to play out of the post and shoot.
The Brandon Bass part of it too. Brandon Bass was like that.
Except that the Sean Livingston part is about fadeaways, like turnaround fadeaways from the post, which he does do. That's something that Koa Pete actually does like to do. That's the kind of thing where it's like, all right, in college, where that's like, I don't know if that's going to fly in the NBA in the same way. He might try to do it, though, and maybe it'll work. Sometimes these guys, that part of their game does translate, like Sean Livingston, for example. So, and he's strong enough right away, like as a rookie, he's strong enough to move a lot of players, especially on any sort of switch if he's setting a screen. So maybe they will give him some opportunities in the post. The thing about being a good passer is like you kind of earn those opportunities in the post sometimes if your passing also creates for other people. So if they get a small switch on him, maybe they'll give him the ball and they'll find ways to create out of that.
Any
other thoughts? I think that's all for now. I want to get an expert on. I
want to get somebody who knows his game a little
someone
better. Someone who's smarter than us. I definitely have questions. You know, the shooting thing is obvious. Anyone can see the fact that his form is fucked up. I have defensive questions though from the people who really watched Arizona inside and out. I want to know about Koa's instincts as a defender. How well he really moves his feet, how switchable he really is at the next level. So I think things like that are going to dictate more about how I feel about him. But otherwise, I'd say I'm happy with this trade. I'm happy that the Suns are taking risks. I'm happy that they're being aggressive, going after guys that they like. I'm happy that I get to make a lot more meat puns, for all those reasons.
You're the only one happy about that.
Everyone go and get yourself a sweet treat because the Suns got Koa Pete.
Oh, no. All right. We'll be back. We're going to watch the draft on our Discord tomorrow, second round. Feel free to join us there if you want. Patreon.com/thetimeline. We'll message you a link if you join our Patreon. So just keep an eye on your messages if you do join. And we appreciate you all. It was a very fun time to watch the draft with you guys that were in our Discord today. So back soon this weekend. Next topic after the draft will be kind of interesting. We're going to have to start talking about free agency, assuming the Suns even have that opportunity. Because they're pretty full up on guys now, Sam. They got to make some space if they want to add anyone to this team.
They have a few days to decide on Jamari Bouye, by the way.
That's true.
His contract is only partially guaranteed until January. But we need to know if they're going to be using that roster spot on anyone else. So they need to make that pretty soon. So I'm watching that closely.
All right. Thanks, everyone, for listening. We'll be back soon.